Maybe if Freya thinks that I'm talking to people, she'll... Yeah, there she comes. Can you hear her? Hi! This is Freya. Say hi, Freya. Yeah, she's precious. Hi, hello everyone. My name is Rachel and welcome back to my channel. Today, what we are going to be doing is my May wrap up. I read 14 books, so I still did pretty dang good for feeling like I didn't read that many books. Again, I keep surprising myself. With that, let's go ahead and get started. The first book that I read this month is One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was actually one of the books that I read for Instagram Chooses the Books That I Read. Go and check that one out. Go and show it some love because it deserves it. Honestly, it's like one of my vlogs that maybe I'm feel most proud of as far as like my editing and like storytelling in it. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. You know Taylor's writing. I mean, if you've read Taylor's writing, you know it's very beautiful, very lyrical. She says a lot in just a few words. And so it's like the perfect length of a story. However, I did find that once I was in it, I was hoping for more. Felt very fast as far as like when her husband came back to when decisions were made. I would have cried, but I was reading in front of people, and so I didn't feel comfortable crying in front of them. But definitely like a really good literary fiction. I would still say that Carrie Soto is Back is my favorite Taylor Jenkins Reid book, but this one I think is like my second favorite. There was a certain bit of relatability to it, of just like your taste changing and who you are changing and like things happening in your life changing you, learning how to accept that. Like that's just a very normal human thing to go through. I think she does a really good job at writing the human condition, and I really like that one. I'm very happy that I knew beforehand who she was going to choose, because that just helped me root for one person and not like have my hopes completely crushed by the end. Because if I didn't know, I don't know who I would have been rooting for in that sense of her to end up with. So I'm glad that I knew from the get-go. So that was the first one. The next one, well, really the next two I'm going to do together. First one is A Kingdom of Blood and Betrayal by Holly Renee, and the second one is A Kingdom of Venom and Vows by Holly Renee. The second and third book in her trilogy, A Kingdom of Stars and Shadow trilogy, something like that. I enjoyed the first book. I remember enjoying the first book, and I think it's just because there was a lot of buildup in the first book. However, once we got to the second and third, so it's a fantasy romance, and it just became basically all about the relationship and all about the smut scenes and the spice. It was no longer about like the actual plot. For me, it was just kind of disappointing. The third book I gave 3 stars, and the second book I only gave 2 stars. That third book just felt same old, same old. It could have just been added to the second book. I don't feel like there was anything really all that new happening in it, except for like the final scene. As far as like world building or anything like that, there was none of that. Can you hear her like whining? She's okay. So anyways, I would recommend, if you're looking for a spicy fantasy romance and like the writing is average, then go for it. But if you're looking for a fantasy romance that's gonna change your life, this ain't it. The next book that I read is actually one that I made a whole video about. We Free the Stars by Hafsah Faizal. If you haven't checked out my We Free the Stars review, go check that out. With this one, I gave it 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed the second book. Honestly, this duology, so good. I was eating up that second book. The storytelling was super good. The tension between the two main characters, as far as like the romance, was really good. The world building was really good. And the way it was crafted was so well done. Something that Hafsah Faizal does really good is she makes the boring parts really interesting, and she knows how to pace it fairly decently. This is a YA fantasy, so there is no spice, just so you know. I swear, go read it. It's one of those where I highly recommend. If you are looking for City of Brass vibes, go read We Hunt the Flame. The next thing that I'm going to talk about, I think, is The King's Spinster Bride by Ruby Dixon. This is the one that I listened to on my way here. If you haven't seen my road trip video, that's okay. It's kind of chaotic. I listened to that book on audio, and it was one of those where I was hunting for a cringy, bad romance, and that's what I got with this. Overall, for what it was, it being bad, I don't know how to describe this because I ended up giving it 1 star. It was just weird the way in which they spoke about each other, and like when they first met, he was 8 years old and she was like 17, 18, something like that. He had vowed from the moment that she saved him when he was 8 that she was his, like claiming her, and it's like an 8-year-old. And then also the entire time she's like complaining about her age being so much older than him, and this is like years later. He's like 24, she's like 30 something. She's complaining about her age nonstop, and he's like, I don't care about your age, I claimed you when I was 8. And I'm just like, both sides of this is weird. There are parts of it that were just a little bit too strange for me as far as like age wise, but when it came to like the monster stuff or like the things that I would have thought would have been weird, it really wasn't. It was fairly normal. So I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it unless it's something where you're like, I just want a cringe fest to listen to. Then it's perfect for that. The next book that I read is God of Wrath by Rina Kent. I was mainly just like looking for a dark romance palette cleanser. I had thought that Rina Kent wrote the books that Cora Riley wrote. Like, I switched. I got mixed up with the authors. I got into this one. It is part of a legacy series that she has written from like 2 other series that she's already written. And so it's the children of the people from the 2 other series. The 2 main characters, it just didn't really make sense why they liked each other or like why they fell in love. Like, they barely had any conversations, and it was very insta-lovey. I ended up only giving it 2 stars. It's a book where it's at college, and it's a little bit like a bully romance. Like, this girl who is part of one of the families does this like night legacy thing of like trying to, spy on this group of boys, and then one of the group of boys who is like really, tough guy, sees her, and it's like weird. I don't know how to describe it other than just, I don't know, it just didn't hit. And so the next books that I read, I got into the Edens series by, is it Devney? Devney Perry? So I read Indigo Ridge, Juniper Hill, Garnet Flats, and The Crimson River. I read all 4 of her books that are out. I just finished The Crimson River last night. Honestly, they're fine. They're fine. They're cute books. I think I liked Garnet Flats the most. So the Edens follows this family and all of the children of the family. They have like 5 or 6 siblings, and they all live in this tiny town, and they're kind of like the royalty of this town. It's like small town vibes. It's not like anything major. They're like mystery romance type things. So like always at the end there's something extremely dramatic that happens. The first one, it makes sense because our main girl character is the new police chief, and like someone dies, so she's got to like figure out what is going on. Like, that makes sense, and it's on the property of the main male character, you know? And so, like, is he a suspect, or is he, you know, the love of her life? Only time will tell, you know? So, like, that makes sense. But then the rest of them, second one, he's the chef of a restaurant. It's not necessary for that to be, like, really dramatic at the end. Same with Garnet Flats. And same with Crimson River. Crimson River, I feel like, was the most, like, out of pocket, like out of nowhere. I'm like, oh, okay, sure. I think we could have spent more time developing the characters and developing the relationships. All of the relationships thus far, except for Garnet Flats, which is my favorite, felt very insta-lovey, and I think Garnet Flats didn't. It's because it's a second chance, and so they already knew each other, and they had already, like, dated for a whole year and, like, fell in love for a year. Like, that just felt more real, whereas these other ones, like Crimson River, they were still, like, barely speaking to each other, like, 60% through the book. And I'm like, you cannot tell me that y'all are gonna fall in love in, like, 2 days. And, like, she was already falling in love with him. And I was like, you guys haven't even spoken. Like, there's a way to, like, cultivate tension and chemistry between two characters without it just being about the physical part of it. And so, but I ended up giving Indigo Ridge 2.5 stars, Jasper Hill 3 stars, Garnet Flats 3 stars, and Crimson River I gave 2 stars. So, not the best, but what can you do? The next book that I read is, this is the first one that I actually have. The next book that I read is Overkill by Sandra Brown. I have never read a Sandra Brown book before. She is a well-beloved, like, thriller, mystery, romance author. She has written so many. Look at that. Look at her. And it's funny, too, because the girl in the, like, the main girl character, I swear she has the same exact haircut. Like, she described, I think, her same exact haircut for the main girl. And, like, the main girl in this story is, like, my age. And, like, just thinking about me going into the salon and being like, give me the Karen, like, I can't. And so I think Sandra still definitely writes herself into her own books, which I love that for her. I read this one, and it's very much like your classic old school romance type book. Like, the adjectives are in there, like the uncomfortable, like, feelings are in there, like, just the uncomfortable way of describing sexual things is in there. Kind of made me laugh, kind of gave me those vibes, and I was just like, wow, tale as old as time. So I guess for, like, that factor, I gave it a few extra points. But as far as, like, the romance itself, the mystery itself, I mean, we got the point of view of the bad guy. And so we knew everything that was going on the whole time. Like, we knew who he was. Like, there wasn't really anything truly mysterious about it. Oh, that's a little bit creepy. And then, like, that was the end. And so, and, like, also, like, the romance in it just wasn't that strong. Again, insta-lovey, and those just aren't my vibe. So, anyways, it's not my favorite. It wasn't my favorite. I read the back of it and was intrigued, and so I thought that I would give it a shot. Fortunately, Sandra Brown just isn't for me. But if you are looking for, like, an old school vibe romance, thriller romance, pick this one up. If I ever am in the mood for that, I know exactly where I'm going. I'm hitting up Sandy, and we're gonna go get the Karen together. And the next book that I read, I actually read for a vlog. Really, the last 3 books that I read are for a vlog, so I'm not going to go too much into detail with my reviews on them because I want to save a little bit of fun for the vlog. The first book that I read is Every Summer After by Carley Fortune. I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. This one was so close to a 5. I truly adored this book, which is so crazy. Like, I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, especially with the mixed reviews. I've heard multiple times now, like, there's just a thing at the end of this book that I'm like, no, I just can't abide by. And it's like, yes, like, by itself, you can't, obviously you wouldn't abide by it. But with the context, like, it just, like I understand, like, where our main girl is coming from. By the end of it, I was like, I feel for her. Because she's young, she doesn't know what she's doing, she's in love with someone, and they're not communicating with her. It makes sense why this mistake would be made. It's still a mistake, but it makes sense. And so, yeah, I think that people are a little bit too hard on this one, which is kind of crazy because it's a bad thing, but I thought it was going to be like something way worse. But no. Percy and Sam are so cute, and I absolutely adored this, loved it. If you haven't read this one yet for the summer, I highly recommend this one. For this to be a debut, amazing, incredible. Love you, Carley. I'm definitely going to read her next book. The next book that I read is Happy Place by Emily Henry. Guys, I gave this one 5 stars. You guys, if you are looking for a literary fiction with some romance in it, go pick this one up. I think Emily Henry is getting really good at her literary fiction style writing. Like, I just think she is honing in on that. And I can tell a difference from Beach Read to this book, that she keeps getting better and better, and she keeps writing better and better books. Anyways, excited to talk more about it with you next week. The last book that I read this month is Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau. This one I gave 4 stars. This book is a coming-of-age literary fiction. It's about this 14-year-old girl named Mary Jane, and she comes from a very strict conservative household in the 70s, but then she babysits for a family that is like the polar opposite. Such a good book. I highly recommend this one. It's so cute. I full-on cried while reading the end of this one, and you'll see that in my vlog. I will be putting video footage of me crying, something I never thought that I would do for the internet. All right, and that is it. That is it for my May wrap-up. I started off good with One True Loves, but then that middle part of the month was bad as far as like quality of books that I read. But girl, did we end on a high note with these. I was shocked because like that just doesn't happen. Usually, there's at least a 3 in there. But for them all to be 4 stars and above, that's wild for me. Get pumped for that. I hope that you enjoyed. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I read this month. Your thoughts and feelings on them. If you're going to pick up any of these books, please let me know too. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I will talk to you all again soon. Bye! Woo! Say bye, Freya. She's like, no, I'm done. Okay, bye!